Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and thanks for joining me on a very beautiful November fall afternoon here in Southwest Missouri, man. It's just no wind today out here. It's probably about, probably 60 degrees or something like that. Just really a beautiful evening out here. Just a good place to do a video this afternoon. Guys, today I want to have a talk with everybody about some concerns I have for what this sport is going to look like 50 years from now. You guys hear me talking about this stuff a lot. If you watch my channel very much, you know that I talk a lot about the history and the traditions and the way fishing used to be and my concerns for the future and the sustainability moving forward. But I want to have a talk with you guys, just like if you're sitting here on the deck with me and we were talking about this. I got some things I want to get off my chest here when it comes to, a lot of different things we got coming up in the sport. So we're gonna sit down, have a little discussion. Just turn the video on. You can drive home from work or work on some tackle out in the tackle room and just listen to it. Really appreciate that. Also, guys, for get started, a couple different things. Getting my on the water jerkbait lessons going right now. If you guys are interested in booking one with me, I do most of my lessons on Stockton and Table Rock Lake here in Missouri. Just shoot me a private message on my Facebook page, Randy Blaukat Professional Angler, and I can get you all the details for that. And also, guys, real quick reminder that Tackle Warehouse has got a huge Black Friday sale going on. It's a really good time to stock up on some tackle or get some gifts or something for Christmas coming up. I'll put my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of the video. If you guys can use that link, it's a good way to support intuitive angling, so really appreciate that. Okay, guys, I spend a lot of time thinking about this because, one of the reasons is because I love the sport of bass fishing, and I've been in it since I can remember, since I was a little bitty kid. It's been a huge part of my life. So as you get older and you start making a transition into more of a teacher, more of a mentor as you get older, this is part of it because you're concerned about what it's going to be like moving forward. I look at the way that the sport was when I first got into it, and I look at it now and I see the changes that have occurred during that time frame, and it has not been for the better. And personally, I'm really concerned about what we have moving forward, what it's going to look like for the next generation and the next generation after that. And one of the big problems I see within the human species a lot overall, including in bass fishing, is a lot of people, they get so focused on their own lives here and now that they don't have the time and the energy or the desire to look forward, look to see what is going to be coming up after they're not here anymore. Most people are just sort of apathetic to that a little bit. And as a result, a lot of that's not taken care of. So let's talk a little bit about what specifically concerns me moving forward here. I look back when I first started fishing here in Missouri. I first started fishing like Table Rock Lake and Stockton Lake here in Missouri, Grand Lake, wading creeks, fishing farm ponds, and that type of deal. And the first thing that stands out to me that has changed more than anything is the amount of people using that resource has just skyrocketed. Unbelievable. It's like, it used to be, if you went to the lake during the week here in Missouri, like in 1975, you would never, ever see a boat or a truck at the launch ramp, ever. It's like the only people, people came maybe Friday afternoon, Saturday and Sunday, and even then you didn't see that many people because there wasn't hardly any tournaments. The only tournaments were like some club tournaments, and there were some small circuits, but basically there just wasn't that many boats on the lake. And if you fast forward now 50 years later, I can't literally, any lake I go to here in Missouri, there's half the ramp is full any day of the week. And of course on the weekend it's just take a number to get on the lake. So just the transition that I have seen from the amount of usage that we've had over 50 years, and then multiply that times another 50 years, what is that going to look like? I mean, this is something that we have to really entertain here. And another thing, that it goes into different areas too, because it's like, I look back growing up here in Southwest Missouri and the amount of development and growth that has occurred in 50 years, which is not a good thing, by the way. there has been thousands, tens of thousands of wildlife habitat that have just gone by the wayside to strip malls and housing developments and factories, and it's constantly expanding outward. So say, for example, like where I lived in Joplin, Missouri, there I lived in a little town called Duquesne, which was sort of a suburb of Joplin. It was right on the edge of Joplin. But when I was a little kid there wasn't that many people out in Duquesne. In fact, the road in front of my parents' house was a little 2-lane road, and if after about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, you'd never see a car there the rest of the night. And now it's a 4-lane road that's busy 24/7. And then the property behind my mom and dad was just hundreds and hundreds of acres of woods and pastures and fields, just a wildlife habitat. And now it's all housing developments and, just metal, auto garages and stuff like that. And it's gotten pushed out from the city limits of Joplin into Duquesne, and now it's pushing out further and further and further. So you've seen this in your own town. I know you have. You guys have seen the increase in fishing pressure and the increase of development, on the areas that you live in. Just multiply that 50 or 100 years from now and see how everything is eaten up and more development takes place. Same on the lake, housing developments on the lake, guys coming in, developers, and ripping off hillsides at Table Rock Lake and putting weekend condos on it, or $3 million weekend homes from out-of-staters. At some point, it's got to stop. It's like you can't just constantly build and eat up all the natural resources and eat up all the wildlife habitat and displace wildlife and just continually grow. That is unsustainable. Now, one of the reasons, let's look at this. The Native American Indians have lived in North America here, which is now the United States, for a lot of people think around 30,000 years. They came over the Bering Land Bridge. So up from 30,000 years ago, here in what is now the United States, the landscape basically remained unchanged for 30,000 years. And it's only been radically changed over the past 200 years or so here in the United States. So you look at what has happened, the way that the United States looks as far as just, a country now, as far as the development in it over the last, specifically the last 100 years versus 30,000 years before that. Multiply that development and growth that we have seen just explode over the last 50 or 100 years. Put another 100 years on that, guys, and try to visualize what that looks like in your mind. Try to visualize the amount of people and the amount of development, and when all this happens, you're losing trees, you're losing wildlife habitat, you're degrading the environment, you're creating more pollution issues. It is unsustainable. And it's sort of the same in bass fishing here. We have got in a situation here where we're creating an unsustainable future for the next generation. We're creating an unsustainable bass fishery in terms of overuse, pollution, how technology is devastating the sport. Same with all, just living here in the country as far as the overpopulation and the urban sprawl and the suburban sprawl that goes with it. At some point, somebody has to be the adult in the room and say, look, we have got to dial it back, man. It's like growth for the sake of growth. There's nothing good about that. When you have uncontrolled, unregulated growth, eventually something will collapse because you're living out of balance. And that is the point that so many people do not understand, guys. You have got to live in balance on this planet. We are floating around out here in the Milky Way galaxy that is 100,000 light years across, amongst trillions of other galaxies just in there. We have one planet to live on. We don't have a backup, guys. All this stuff about, going to Mars and colonizing Mars, that's just a bunch of BS. That's not going to happen. We got one planet to live on and sustain us, and we have got to take care of that planet. And if we don't take care of that planet, we are going to be looked upon as the biggest villains in the history of this existence, and we are going to usher in the 6th extinction level event in this particular, planet that we live on. There's been 5 other extinction level events in our history of our planet here. Every one of them sort of a different things, but they all involved climate change. It's like when you have a climate change that has occurred, whether it be from an asteroid or a volcano or whatever, it completely disrupts and throws the entire balance of the ecosystem out. Species die off, and then they come back and evolve later. But now what we have, we've accelerated all these natural, man-made, all these natural climate change events like, earthquakes and, asteroids and that stuff by the industrial age. And our human activity is accelerating this next, this climate change event that we're in the middle now, which most experts in the field say that if we don't curtail that, it is going to be an extinction level event for the human species, the 6th one. And a lot of people deny the reality of that situation. They deny science, they deny fact, they stick their head in the sands. They have a worldview that doesn't, vibe with their worldview. They get their news from talk show hosts and politicians with a community college degree. They undermine the experts. They discredit the experts because it's all about making money. It's all about, when you have something that is that stands in the way of profit and power, they're going to try to discredit it at every turn. So, I sort of got off on a tangent there, but the point that I want to make as far as the sport goes here is every single one of us, if you're in the sport, we have got to have a shift in the way we think, and we've got to start thinking about what is this going to do to the next generation we hand this off on. And that's why I dog technology so much, because AI and the advancing technology in fishing is and will destroy the sport. It'll take it out without any doubt whatsoever. If you don't believe that, you are in denial of reality of the situation. So we have got to start having people in positions of power within the industry and within the government and within the country that are critical thinkers, that are science driven, that don't deny the reality of the situation, that don't live in a world of alternative facts, and they live in a world of real facts. Because if we don't take care of it, nobody's going to. So anyway, just a few random thoughts on this beautiful fall day. So let's shoot some comments, guys. Let me know what you think, and we'll check in later.